I was standing in my
Doing this
kitchen holding
again.
a coffee
Talk
mug that had
about
already
this.
gone cold when my
My
husband said
decision is
something that didn't
final.
feel real.
I'm not changing
My
my mind
sister
this
needs
time.
help with rent, he
I
said, and I
understand where you're
nodded without
upset, but you
looking up,
have to listen to
okay.
me.
But then he
Here's how
added,
it
I
looks.
told her you,
We need to
cover
talk
it.
about this
I
before we make a
froze.
decision you'll
Slowly,
regret.
I turned toward him. You told her what? He didn't hesitate. It's just $2,600, he said. You make more than me anyway. Just like that. No question, no discussion, already decided. I set the mug down slowly, not dramatic, just controlled. You already told her, I asked. Yeah, he shrugged. She needs it by tonight. Tonight. I stared at him, waiting for him to correct himself, to say he'd handle it, to act like this was a conversation and not a decision, but he didn't. He just sat there like it was normal. I should have said no. I should have pushed back. I should have asked why he thought he could decide something like that for me, but I didn't. Okay, I said one word, and that's where everything changed because he smiled, relaxed instantly. Good, he said. I knew you. Understand. Understand what? That I'm the one who fixes everything. That I'm the backup plan whenever something goes wrong. He went back to his phone like nothing happened, like the conversation was over, like the decision had already been made and I was just there to follow it. I didn't say anything else, not then, not after, but something shifted in that moment because it wasn't about the money. I had $2,600, that wasn't the issue. The issue was that he didn't ask. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wide awake, replaying everything, and the more I thought about it, the more things started connecting. This wasn't the first time. There were smaller moments before, decisions he made without me, things I was expected to just go along with, money I was helping with without really thinking about it. I ignored those because they felt small, but this didn't feel small. This felt like a pattern I had been overlooking. The next morning, I woke up early, earlier than him, made coffee, sat at the table, and opened my phone, staring at my bank app. I could send it right there, 2 taps and it would be done, and that's exactly what he expected. But I didn't move. Not because I was angry, not even because I was hurt, but because something finally felt clear. I wasn't being asked for help. I was being assigned responsibility, and that's a very different thing. He walked into the kitchen a few minutes later, still half asleep, and the first thing he said wasn't good morning. You sent it, he asked. I looked up at him calmly. Not yet, I said. He frowned. Why not? I held his gaze for a second, then said, I'll handle it. That was enough for him. He nodded, relaxed again. All right, he said, grabbing his keys. Just make sure it's done today. And then he left, just like that, like everything was under control, like I was exactly where he expected me to be, but I wasn't, because the moment he walked out that door, I didn't send the money, I did something else, and he had no idea. The next 2 days I didn't bring it up again, not once. I just acted like everything was normal. I made dinner, I replied to his messages. I even laughed at something he said, and that's what made it work because he relaxed completely, like there was nothing to worry about, like everything had already been handled, and that's exactly what I needed. That evening he asked again, You sent it right? Barely looking at me, and I said, Yeah. Just one word, simple, calm, and he didn't question it. Not even for a second, and that's what stayed with me the most. Not the demand, not even the amount, but how easily he believed I would just do it without asking anything back. No confirmation, no checking, not even a thank you, just expectation. Later that night, his phone buzzed and he picked it up instantly, smiled, and said, That's her, she got it. And I just nodded. Good, I said, like everything was fine. But inside that confirmed everything, he didn't even know if I sent it. He just assumed I did and told her it was done, and that wasn't trust, that was entitlement. The next morning I sat at the same table with the same coffee. But this time I opened my laptop and started writing everything down. Every bill, every payment, every transfer, line by line. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to see it clearly. And when I did, I stopped for a second because I wasn't just helping. I was covering most of it: rent, groceries, subscriptions, unexpected, family emergencies, all of it. And suddenly that $2,600 didn't feel like a one-time thing anymore. It felt like a pattern, a system, and I was the one funding it. He walked in while I was still staring at the screen and asked, What are you doing? And I closed the laptop calmly. Nothing, I said, and he didn't push because in his mind everything was already handled, everything was already done. Later that day, I got a message from his sister. Thanks for the transfer, read. And I stared at it for a few seconds before typing back, No problem, and sending it, not because I meant it, But because I needed her comfortable too, the more comfortable they were, the easier this would be. That night I stayed in the bedroom instead of sitting with him, not avoiding him, just choosing distance. And I opened my laptop again and finished what I started. A full breakdown of everything I had been paying. Every time I covered something that wasn't mine. Every time I stepped in without being asked properly. And when I was done, I saved it, closed the file. And for the first time I smiled, not because anything was funny, but because now I had something he didn't expect, proof. Not emotional proof, not something he could argue with, real proof. And the best part was he still thought everything was fine. He thought I had already paid. He thought I was still playing my role. But in reality, that's when I stopped. And what I did next wasn't emotional, it was calculated. The next evening I told him to come home early, just a simple message. Let's have dinner. And he didn't question it, of course he didn't, because in his mind everything was still normal, still under control, still exactly how he expected it to be. When he walked in, I was already sitting at the table, food ready, lights soft, everything calm, exactly the way he liked it, and he smiled like nothing had changed. Nice, he said. What's the occasion? I shook my head slightly. Nothing, just wanted to spend time. And he sat down, started eating, relaxed, that same confidence, that same version of him that believed everything was handled. Halfway through dinner, I pushed my laptop toward him and said, "Take a look." And he frowned a little, confused. What is this? But he opened it anyway, and I watched his face change slowly. Confusion first, then focus. Then something heavier, because what he was looking at wasn't just numbers, it was everything, every bill, every payment, every transfer, highlighted, clear, organized, and right there at the bottom, 2600 unpaid. He looked up at me, "You didn't send it." And I said, "No." Just like that, simple, calm, no emotion, and his expression shifted instantly. "What do you mean, no?" He asked, and I leaned back slightly, still calm. "I mean I didn't send it," and the silence that followed didn't need explanation. "She needed that money," he said, and I replied, "You promised it." Not louder, not sharper, just accurate, and that's when he paused because now he had to think. "That's not the point," he said, but I tilted my head slightly. "Then what is?" And he didn't answer right away because now the conversation wasn't going the way he expected. "You could have just told me," he said finally, and I nodded. "I could have, and you could have asked," and that landed, not loudly, but enough. He leaned back in his chair, frustrated now. "You're making this a big deal," and I almost smiled. "No, you just didn't expect me to notice." And that's when everything went still, because that was the truth, not emotional, not dramatic, just real. "You always help," he said, and there it was, the real reason, not partnership, not respect, expectation. "I did," I said, past tense, and he looked at me differently then, like he was seeing something he hadn't seen before. "And now?" he asked, and I held his gaze. "Now I don't," and that silence felt final. "I'm not paying for something I wasn't even asked about," I said, calm, clear, and this time he didn't argue, didn't try to push back because there was nothing left to say. For the first time, the situation wasn't in his control, and he knew it. I stood up, not to walk away dramatically, just because I was done sitting in something that didn't respect me. And as I moved past him, I realized something. I didn't lose anything in that moment. Not the money, not the relationship. I lost the version of myself that stayed quiet when it mattered. And him. He didn't lose me that night. He lost me the moment he thought I wouldn't notice. And that's something he's going to remember for a long time.